kicking off the list at number 10, we have Multiple Man. James Madrox. He made his first comic book appearance in Giant Size Fantastic Four, issue 4, and right off the bat, he seems very soft-spoken. He seems very gentle. I mean, the Thing is yelling at him, and he's literally like, "Why do you reject me? Why?" Like, he's so almost poetic in a way. And then when the Thing goes to clobber him, bam, there's multiple more men. Now, he wasn't used very much in the X-Men, but he spent most of his days with X-Factor. But this guy is underrated. His powers may seem kind of weak compared to somebody like Jean Grey, but these duplicates can each make a duplicate.
Let me try something. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. Hi.
At one point, this guy had 40 of him running around town. 40. Now, the duplicates think, they feel, and they act independently, but they're guided by the original James Madrox. In a way, they're guided. They kind of know what to do. Each of these duplicates manifests one aspect of James' personality, and the longer the time away, the more those traits become extreme. And if one of these duplicates passed away, he can sense that the general area where the body is, which is like the saddest radar ever. This guy could take over the world if he wanted. It would be like that scene from The Matrix, but with more monologues probably. And before we go on to this list of X-Men you probably wouldn't expect to be that powerful, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, just right there, just give it a little tap, and it helps our studio out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the list. Lickety split. Number 9, Darwin. We saw this next mutant for a hot minute in X-Men First Class. He was played by Eddie Gathegi, who unfortunately didn't survive too long. See, he threw his life down on the line in order to protect his fellow X-Men. And this was still in the early days too. What a champ. He first showed up in the comics in 2005 with X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 2. Armando Munoz looked a lot different than we saw on screen as well. Since he was 4 years old, he was bald, his arms were super long, and his eyes were changing. He sure looks a little bit different than the young, handsome actor that we saw in the movie. His ability comes in handy a lot actually, more so in the X-Men movies. See, in the comics, he's practically immortal. His ability once allowed him to survive Hela's death touch. I mean, it's a little bit different than the last time we saw him, that's for sure. Number 8, Caliban. An albino mutant and former member of the Morlocks, Caliban made his first comic book appearance in Uncanny X-Men 148. So he has the ability to track down any mutant. He actually sacrifices himself in the movie Logan, where Stephen Merchant played him. He was also in X-Men Apocalypse for a bit too, played by a different actor. He was played by Tomas Lamarcus. He was originally an ally to the X-Men, but once he became a tracker for Apocalypse in X-Factor issue 24, titled The Fall of the Mutants. So he's pretty powerful, and he's done a lot of cool stuff too. He may seem like a gentle, lanky, pale man, but when Caliban is stressed out in the comics, he gains 2 additional powers: super strength and fear absorption. So if you put him in a corner, he'll be able to absorb the psionic energy in your fear and use it to power himself up even more. Number 7, Glob Herman. AKA Robert Herman, although Glob is much more fun to say. He made his debut in New X-Men issue 117, and he grew up with a father who despised mutants, so already he's off to a pretty rocky start. So when Glob mutated, his father was just not on board, so his mother drove Glob out to Westchester and just left him for Professor X. Like you leave a baby at a fire station. It's just like, yep, here you go, your problem now. This mutation was interesting. So his skin was this transparent living wax, which he's able to maintain being on fire, which is pretty amazing off the bat. You can light him on fire and he's good to go. That's amazing. He runs with the New Mutants now, and although his name is silly and he's literally a glob, he can also possess powers of super strength and super speed, despite how he may look. So he can get hit by these massive bombs like it's nothing, then he can fight whoever launched that bomb with ease. The X-Men literally once used him as a heat shield once. They strapped Glob to the front of their ship, and it didn't seem pleasant for a man Glob, but he was good. He didn't die or anything. He had to rest for a bit. Number 6, Toad. When you think of the name Toad in relation to a superhero, you're gonna picture something pretty silly in your head. And Mortimer Toynbee isn't that far off from what you'd think. He made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men issue 4. So he hops around, which seems silly, but his legs are so strong that he can leg press 3 tons. And it's not just his legs that are strong, his upper half possesses superhuman strength as well. His arms can lift about 1 ton. He also has flexible bone structure, regenerative healing factor, infrared vision, and the best part, his 30-foot long tongue can also act as a whip. And it can secrete venom that can give him mind control over your body, and his saliva is acid as well. Number 5, Wither. Making his first appearance in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 3, Kevin Ford grew up thinking that he was cursed, or he was the most unlucky person ever, one or the two. See, his mutant power started manifesting, and then he noticed it first in his plants, and then he noticed it in his clothes, and then he noticed it in people. So what would happen is his plants would wither. They would wither and they would die. And then his clothes were starting to decay as well. So once his father figures out this mutation, he tries to calm him down, but coming into contact with him, obviously the inevitable happens. He sees the world in this lifeless or decaying way now. See, it's part of this mutation. He can disintegrate all forms of organic matter just by one touch. Whatever he touches withers, so now we get his name. It turns into dust within seconds, whatever it is. Now this seems boring, I guess. When you think of it in like a cinematic battle, it's not too exciting. But this guy can take out an entire elite squad just by touching them. I mean, realistically, just send him in always. No one's gonna expect it. All you have to do is get him to fist bump everybody and then bam, just like that. No more bad guys. Number 4. Nocturne. This next one, she comes from Earth 2182, where she's the daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch. Now, she's got her dad's looks, unfortunately. She's blue, furry, she's got 3 fingers and 3 toes. She's got a tail and yellow eyes and pointed ears. Now, sure, she looks like she can take out any bad guy, like she looks like an alien. So she possesses the powers of both of her parents. She can blast off energy bolts, she can climb walls, but what makes her even more powerful is that she has the ability to possess others for 12 hours, or 1 lunar cycle. But once that timer is up, the victim is just completely out of it for 24 hours, just comatose. This super offspring packs a super punch, that's for sure. Number 3, Tattoo. Christine Cord made her comic book debut in the new X-Men issue 126. She was a student of the Xavier Institute, and she's known as Tattoo, well, because her mutation allows her to display messages or designs on her skin, and she can phase through matter, which is also kind of fun. She's pretty awesome. I mean, when you first think of her, you may just think of the skin messages and be like, oh, whatever, maybe she's a spy, maybe she can be like, send help and then use her skin. Cool, that's good. But check this out. Tattoo actually phased her hand into Cyclops' head once and told him that if she becomes solid, he would not survive to see the end of it. How awesome is that? But she sadly lost her powers during the events of M-Day, but if you ever ran into Christine again, she would probably surprise you with her new ability. When she was released from jail, she joined the New Warriors and was given her own Stiltman armor, becoming Longstrike. So bam! 2 in 1. Talk about underrated. Number 2, Banshee. The Screaming Banshee. Okay, he made his first appearance in X-Men issue 28. Sean Cassidy was born as the heir to the castle and estate of Cassidy Keep, Ireland. Now, Professor Xavier asked him to join the X-Men at the same time as Thunderbird, and they both stayed as members of the new X-Men. Now, he went on to train the new generation of X-Men and Generation X, but he sadly lost his life during Deadly Genesis when he was trying to stop Blackbird from crashing when it was taken over. So when you think of an X-Men who screams so loud he can hurt people, it's impressive on its own, sure, but his screams are actually stronger than we really think. His screams can actually break through an inch of steel. And with these wings that Professor X developed for him, he's able to harness this power and use his screams as energy to help him fly. So he can do so much more with his voice as well. He can tighten the sound waves around himself to make a sonic shield, and he can influence your subconscious by changing the tones and vibrations of his voice. He can literally change your mind. How awesome is that? What do you mean you want a divorce? And finally, number 1, we have my favorite on the list, Bailey Hoskins. Okay, I have to talk about this poor kid. Okay, strongest X-Men you wouldn't expect? Yeah, that is for sure Bailey Hoskins. The only appearance of this kid is in the 2016 miniseries X-Men, Worst X-Man Ever, which is a pretty cruel name. He was a student at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, and his power is pretty spectacular. He can self-detonate, he can make himself explode, and you would never expect it just by looking at him. I mean, come on. He reminds me of Hogarth from the Iron Giant. He's such a cute kid. The thing is, he can only use this fantastic ability once. And his last issue in the comics was X-Men Worst X-Man Ever, issue 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Top 10 Nerd. I have been your host, Taylor McWaters. Look, drop us a comment down below. Which of these underrated X-Men is your favorite? Because we love to check them out as well. Like Bailey Hoskins, that could be a Disney Plus original right there. It would only be 5 episodes, that's for sure.
There are the tried and true X-Men teams and rosters, and then there's everyone else. With so many X-Men comics constantly ongoing though, I'm hoping some listed here can get some more love. This X-Men roster we're about to talk about marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. Extreme X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran till 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as leader. You know I'm all about Rogue. The original Extreme X-Men roster also featured Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird on the team. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added to the mix throughout. Honestly, I love Lifeguard and I don't think she gets enough love. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats. As you do. The Great Ring of Arakko is exclusively made up of Omega level mutants, which really tells you how much of a powerhouse team they would be. They are the ruling body of Arakko, which is the sister mutant island nation to Krakoa, which of course eventually goes on to become Mars, and yeah, we've had a whole adventure with them. In fact, Arakko and Krakoa are actually less siblings and are more romantically tied in terms of the islands themselves. They're both sentient mutant islands, and for a long time they were attached to one another and also kind of in love, although now they prefer to be separate. They tried to be reunited after Arakko was liberated, but then they just weren't feeling it at that time. You know how it is. Arakko's ruling government has 4 distinct sections which govern different parts of their civilization, with some areas having more power at given times. For example, in war times, Dawn is the area that typically gets more say, as this is the area that would rule and govern during that time. For years, the Iraqi were at war with the Men, so this would have been a very prominent section for many years in their history. And it's something that the mutants of Arakko struggle with releasing themselves from, the obligation to always be on guard and always be at war. While Uranos faced off with the Great Ring of Arakko and pretty much cleaned their clock, pretty recently actually, this should not make us undermine their strength, as Uranos is basically on a whole other level by himself as one of the most powerful, ruthless, and evil Eternals that we've ever seen in comics, so yeah. Not all teams on my list here are going to be the good guys when it comes to our X-Men rosters, and this is one of those teams. It was simply too good for me to not include. In the Fantastic Extreme X-Men, this is a team of villains from alternate realities, and even perhaps the main reality that our multiversal X-Men team, led by Earth 616's Dazzler, must face. The 10 evil Xaviers features one that is a cowboy, another that is a Cthulhu-like floating brain, and one that is a giant Akanti whale, and so many more amazing weird alternates of the X-Men's leader and mentor, Charles Xavier, aka Professor X. This one is from the 2010 series Generation Hope and was under Cyclops' banner, ultimately following the events of Regenesis. Though the team itself was led by mutant Messiah Hope Summers, and its roster consisted of No Girl, Pixie, Primal, Sebastian Shaw, Transonic, Velocidad, and Zero at that time. Though originally Hope's team started pre-Regenesis as just being 5 mutants, including Hope herself as one of those 5, with Velocidad, Oya, Primal, and Transonic on the team. The team was sort of brought together as a search and rescue group who were acknowledged as the 4 of the 5 lights of Cerebra. Hope basically triggered the rebirth of the mutant gene, activating these mutants, and the 5th light was what they sought and why they basically came together, heading to Tokyo, Japan to find out this 5th light. Zero was the mutant they sought, who would of course eventually join the team. While everyone might focus on the battle of the Atom Future Brotherhood team, as Raze has, a tendency to steal the show, we all love Raze, plus my girl Zoran Jean, and also featuring Molly Hayes, people tend to forget about the awesomeness that was the Future X-Men team as well, the real Future X-Men. This team featured a much more skilled Iceman, who now was known as Ice Wizard, Wiccan, who had become Sorcerer Supreme at this point, Chimera, who is believed to be Storm's daughter that she had with Black Panther, Shogo, Jubilee's son, known as Sentinel X, Colossus armed with Magic's Soul Sword, Kid Omega as Phoenix, and Jubilee as Wolverine. I kinda love all of this. Jubilee as Wolverine's a little weird, but I'm still kinda into it. Because, yeah, Jube's following in Wolverine's footsteps is super cute. The Dark X-Men are what we get when Norman Osborn is basically put in charge of all the super teams you can imagine. And yes, as I said, not everyone on my list is going to be a good X-Men team, because that's not as much fun. I love a little bit of evil sprinkled in. Now this team came out of the Dark Reign period over at Marvel Comics. Norman ended up becoming the world's greatest hero, at least in civilians and the government's eyes, after he successfully shot and killed Skrull Queen Veronica, in essence ending Secret Wars and in a weird twist saving the day. Not what you'd expect from Norman, but there we were. As a reward, he was given the task of creating a new organization to take over for the disbanded S.H.I.E.L.D. Norman created Hammer in response and made his own teams of both Dark Avengers and Dark X-Men. His initial roster included Dark Beast, Mystique, Mimic, and Omega. I feel like Dark Beast is such a great evil mutant that he generally just ends up being on almost every evil mutant X-Men team, but also I love Dark Beast, so I'm kind of fine with that. Although to be fair, Hank was giving him a run for his money recently when we had the previous incarnation of Hank as the main continuity one in the X-Men. And I wish Dark Beast was still alive though, so I at least had some way to rationally explain that whole version of Hank's behavior, who I thought might have been Dark Beast for a while, but then considering that Dark Beast is dead and everything else, and we also see proof of that, yeah, sadly that was not the case. Spider-Man Special Class is a great and overall underrated team. They were pulled together as the result of Storm finding some papers belonging to Logan after his death, mentioning the intention to put together a special class of mutants for Spider-Man to teach, made up of kids who were deemed most likely to become villains. Which honestly, for some of these people, I can't believe that he's like, these people, they could become villains. They could become villains, bub. They go on a couple of adventures together, but tragically wouldn't last too long as a team, but I just love the idea of Spider-Man teaching a group of mutants. The team included Ernst, No Girl, Rockslide, Hellion, Shark Girl, Glob Herman, and Eye-Boy, with quite a few of these younger mutants being some of my favorites. See if you can guess who is among them in the comments, and share with me some of your favorite mutants, please. The Extinction Team truly is a scary one. They came together in response to the fact that the Phoenix Force was believed to be returning. It was thought that the Phoenix Force wanted to merge with mutant Messiah Hope Summers and have her act as its host. While the X-Men were more optimistic about the Phoenix's return, the Avengers were not so much. As a result, the mutants deployed their own team to fight against the Avengers, but which was initially also created to defend the mutant island of Utopia and the world against extinction level threats, hence the name. Extinction Team. The Extinction Team included Cyclops, Magneto, Namor, Storm, Danger, Magic, Hope Summers, Emma Frost, and Colossus. Now, talk about a powerhouse lineup, that's wild. Never mind the Phoenix Force, this team in and of itself seems frightening enough to justify the Avengers' concern. If these mutants all got together and I was on the Avengers, I would also be worried. Assuming they don't trust the mutants having power too, which, yeah. Which, while at times both teams have been allied, has always seemed to remain a bit of a touchy subject to the Avengers, who kind of have a history of not playing well with other major superhero teams in the Marvel Universe. In fact, they also even have a history of not playing well with each other within their own team, so yeah. This team is what I like to call the other XSE. This team also spiraled out of a team that we talked about previously, Extreme X-Men. XSE here stands for the Extreme Sanctions Executive. Similar to the original XSE that Bishop was a part of in the future, this team is also like a military police force meant to maintain, and in some cases by force, ensure peace is kept between mutants and humans. By force. Storm was asked to create the team by the United Nations and eventually would increase its numbers by recruiting the rest of the X-Men, making this another government-sanctioned mutant team, kinda like X-Factor was, or at least, you know, X-Factor was to start. Team members have included Bishop, Cannonball, Magma, Rachel Summers, Psylocke, Rogue, Sage, Wolverine, X-23, and Gambit. What a fun team. I think it's such a fun team. I mean, when you consider that the sword bearers of Arakko were all pretty much kicking the champions of Krakoa's butts, we have to put them on this list, right? I mean, it's just too cool. While the Araki are newer when it comes to the mutant status quo and what we consider to be an X-Men team, considering we, you know, are just getting to know them still, they're still pretty new to the canon, and they're loosely tied to the X-Men through both their connection to Apocalypse and of course all being mutant. At the end of the day, they are still mutants, and I personally think we could kind of see them as X-Men, you know what I mean? Or at least X-Men adjacent, and for that reason, I think that we can include them on this list, which is really more about, you know, mutant teams than I would say specifically X-Men sister teams or X-Men rosters. I'm kind of keeping it a little bit more general here because there's just so many cool X-based teams. We just use the name X-Men because, you know, it makes more sense in relation to Marvel Mutants, and it's more appealing than if we put, you know, Marvel Mutants in the title of this video. It's more clickable, you dig? The Sword Bearers of Arakko didn't just best their Krakoan competitors in contests of combat and wit, but also in some of the more charismatic and honestly odd contests during the Ten of Swords or Otherworld tournament, also beating them in a dancing competition, a runway model one, and a scavenger hunt, to name a few of those seen in X-Force issue number 14 of the 2019 series. That's about it. I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Number 10. Skin. I love me some Gen X mutants, which is why you know I need to talk about Skin on this list. Skin is a mutant whose mutation is basically just a bunch of extra skin. In the comics, it actually took a while for Angelo to be able to embrace his abilities, as he basically resented his powers and being a mutant. However, as time went on, he came to accept them and even became quite good at utilizing his extra skin and using it as a cool power. He could even use it to change the appearance of his shape and face, becoming somewhat of a shapeshifter. While Angelo Espinosa can stretch his skin, it should be noted that his skeleton does not change, making his power kind of a weird and unique one. Skin is also known for having literally thick skin that is more durable than most, as well as more elastic. Number 9. Husk. Paige Guthrie might not be one of the main heroes that you think of when you think X-Men, but for a time she was actually a close-knit part of that team, and even had a controversial romantic relationship with fellow X-Men member Angel, who, even though we don't talk about him as much, is one of the original members, so yeah. I even thought of putting him on this list just because we never talk about him, but I was like, wow, that would be mad disrespect to Angel, so I couldn't do it. I can't lie, I'm actually really excited for the X-Corp series just because I am ready for Angel's return to the spotlight. Paige's powers are fairly unique in that she can shed her skin to reveal a new layer of skin made out of a different material beneath it. This new outer layer of skin can be made of anything that she wants it to be, such as wood, rubber, or even diamonds. Diamond skin is so cool. Just taking a page of Emma Frost's book there. Love it. Number 8. Hellion. So yeah, the early 2000s saw us go through a mutant boom. A boom that likely led to the events of House of M, which was probably used from a practical standpoint to kind of remove a good number of mutants because it was just getting, well, it was getting so out of hand with keeping track of all of these different mutants. We had so many. Too many, maybe. Just kidding, you can never have too many mutants. Hellion was a part of this boom, and he took inspiration for his codename from his mentor Emma Frost's fallen group of mutants, the Hellions. Julian Keller is likely a mutant associated with the X-Men that we don't talk about as often because, well, he's kind of a jerk, and he's not as much of a lovable jerk as someone like Sunspot, so yeah. Julian possesses a unique version of telekinesis in that his powers are far more advanced and allow him to take control on a seemingly molecular level of different objects. They also come with a super cool color as well. Everything he does is like green with his powers. Unfortunately, when emotions get in the way of these powers, this level of telekinesis results in him sometimes combusting objects by accident or simply in anger. Hellion has made a return in Krakoa and has appeared in a few comics, but hasn't become a main member of any of the prominent teams featured there just yet. I personally think it'd be cool to see Hellion on the Hellions, but I don't know if he's messed up enough to be on the Hellions. Number 7. Mercury. Mercury is another mutant to come from the bunch that Hellion was a part of. Julian was actually her first friend that she made when she arrived at the Xavier Institute. Mercury's, or Cecily Kincaid's, parents had sent their daughter there after her powers first manifested, ashamed that she was a mutant. Eventually, they would actually end up disowning her after they themselves were pulled into a mutant conflict. Mercury's powers allow her to turn her skin into liquid metal, which she can then control, reform, and use to shapeshift with. This form is of course made up of non-toxic mercury, which is where she gets her codename from. Mercury was also one of the few mutants to keep her powers following the events of M-Day. In fact, I have quite a few of those on my list. Not all of them, but a few of them. Number 6. Darwin. Darwin has some of the coolest abilities, and yet he isn't often easily recognized as being one of the main members of the X-Men, even though he's been a part of the team for quite some time in the comics. For a long time, he was actually stuck bonded to Vulcan, as he was part of one of the first teams of X-Men Xavier and Moira ever had. I don't know if we called that team the X-Men, but they're basically like another squad of X-Men in my mind, so. He was part of the first team sent in to rescue the X-Men from Krakoa, though we wouldn't find out about that team in terms of comic book history till many years after the events of the X-Men's printed fight against the mutant Living Island. Darwin's powers allow him to evolve as needed to ensure his survival. This basically makes him almost immortal, as he can evolve to resolve almost any life-threatening situation. Recently, in the current X-Men run in issue number 5, this is why Darwin was chosen to be one of the team members to be sent into the vault after Serafina, as it wasn't known how long the team sent in would be locked within that place where time moves more quickly in comparison to Earth. I feel like they also just came out recently, but I haven't read that issue yet, so no spoilers. Number 5. Trance. Trance is another mutant who is affiliated with the X-Men and even tried out to become an X-Men in training under Emma Frost, following the events of House of M. She was one of the lucky few, or unlucky few I guess depending on your perspective, to remain powered. Hope Abbott, or Trance, possesses the power to leave her physical body, becoming ghost-like in appearance on panel, but in reality she's just astral projecting. In other words, she's not as powerful as some other mutants who are able to astral project as, you know, part of their larger set of powers, generally being telepathic or telekinetic in origin. But hey, not everyone can astral project, so I still think this is pretty cool. I also like when people don't have like crazy awesome powerful things and then you still have to see them like try to figure out, how do I use this in a way that's cool and, you know, good, so I can be on the same level. I think that's cooler to read, but that's just me. Number 4. Stacy X. Although Stacy X hasn't made a ton of appearances, she is a memorable character due to her, interesting and sensual abilities. Former abilities, I guess I should say. We don't really know if she has been returned to the status of a mutant, but we do know that she has joined the mutant nation of Krakoa now. So considering that when we last saw her, she was missing those abilities that she used to have in her former appearance, I assume that she has participated in the Crucible, was killed by the mutant formerly known as Apocalypse, and has been resurrected as her former self. But also, there are a lot of people in line to just be returned to us, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in line to participate in the Crucible to earn their powers back, so who knows? Who knows where she is in that long line. Also, Apocalypse is no longer on the island following the events of Ten of Swords, so there is that. I don't know who's running the Crucible now. Who is like the replacement Apocalypse. Stacy X was part of the X-Men for a brief period after being rescued by them from her place of work, which was attacked and destroyed by the Church of Humanity. Stacy X used her powers at her place of employment to help make clients who came through feel good and grant them sensations of pleasure. She can also use her pheromone powers in combat to make her opponents feel not so good, manipulating their bodily functions. She makes you feel sick. Blech. Number 3. Loa. Loa is one of the resurrected mutants to rejoin us on Krakoa, reborn again. While you may not know her as well as some of the others, she has a long and storied past with both the X-Men, her fellow mutants, good pals Rockslide and Match, and even with Namor. In fact, Namor was the one who came to save the day after she first discovered her powers. Loa's abilities allow her to pass through other matter and in so doing destroy it on a molecular level. She discovered she had these powers when her dad was attacked by a shark while they were surfing together, and she passed through it, destroying it. Namor would later come to her and her father's rescue before the situation could escalate, and it was later revealed that her grandmother was actually an old friend of Namor's. Since then, she also gained the ability to breathe underwater after being exposed to the Atlantean amulet. The amulet also allows Loa's physiology to adapt so that she can survive in the depths of the ocean easily. Number 2. Match. You might know the Pyros, but do you know Match? Match is Ben Hamill, one of the mutants to appear in the new X-Men series, but making his first appearance in New Mutants. His powers are pyrokinesis, hence his name. It basically gives him control over fire, which he himself can generate, and also helps to make him immune to fire attacks and heat. Match is now not as hot on the radar, but was for a time the leader of the X-Men adjacent team, the Paragon Squad. He also participated in a competition for a place on Emma Frost's X-Men team, and has attended both the Xavier Institute and the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. I'm not sure if it's of or for, because of feels weird to me, but I think it is right. It's of or for, it's one of those. Number 1. Lifeguard. Lifeguard is Heather Cameron, a mutant who, as a response to life-threatening danger, gains the skills and powers necessary to save those lives around her. This power, or powers, not only works for her in regards to saving others, but also is a reactive power that applies to saving her own life, meaning she can get out of pretty much almost any kind of dangerous situation that she puts herself in. Before lifeguard was her codename, it was actually her profession, as she worked as a lifeguard in Australia where she lived with her brother Davis. Eventually, it was also implied in the comics that she has unknown Shi'ar heritage. We've seen her resurface in Dawn of X, popping up in Krakoa at the Green Lagoon Bar, but it would also be super cool to see her play more of a prominent role at some point in the comics, as her powers are pretty neat and definitely super useful. But maybe too powerful? Maybe that's why we haven't seen her as much. Like, fake hope.
The X-Men have had a lot of characters pass through their many pages, and some just really get the short end of the stick. The Native is a character a lot of people may not have heard of. I certainly hadn't until I read Wolverine Volume 3. The Native is another one of the victims of the Weapon X program that created Wolverine, Sabretooth, and many more. In Volume 3, Issue 13, the Native is being hunted down by Sabretooth on behalf of an offshoot of Weapon X. But the Native proved to actually be more than even Sabretooth and his team could handle, prompting Sabretooth to bring on Wolverine to help, and even he had some trouble with the Native. Eventually, Wolverine switched sides and tried to help the Native, who he learned actually managed to escape Weapon X directly because of Wolverine's original breakout and escape. The thing about the Native is that she is kind of just a Wolverine clone. She may be cool, but she is essentially the same thing, and it was only 6 issues before she was unceremoniously wiped out after being captured by Weapon X. Having been a leader since the New Mutants were first founded, Dani Moonstar is an incredible hero. She's a brilliant fighter, an excellent tactician, and a cunning leader. She can create three-dimensional images of certain visual concepts from thoughts and emotional impressions within the minds of herself and others. It used to be just fears, but then it moved on to deepest desires, and then as she grew, so did her powers to allow her to create images from thoughts and less intense emotions. Now, unfortunately, Dani Moonstar has been playing the role of a supporting character since her team's original run ended. While people like Cannonball and Sunspot have gone on to join the Avengers and many more, Dani has gone on to lose her powers, be a school teacher, and a manager at the equivalent of a mutant daycare. Although she is a Valkyrie, which is super cool. As skilled as Dani is though, she should lead armies and nations, not just stand back while the other X-Men fight. There is something truly sad about the fact that Marvel's first gay character rarely receives much attention. Northstar enjoyed a 4-issue miniseries in the 90s before being left in pretty much narrative limbo for almost a full decade. Northstar has been on both Alpha Flight and the X-Men, and on both teams he got overshadowed by other members, which is strange considering he has light-based powers. It's a little joke. Now, Northstar has many fascinating traits that could be explored if only someone would explore them. His legacy as the first gay hero, his backstory as a mutant extremist, and his complicated history with his original team are all totally viable things to explore. But on top of all that, Northstar is even more interesting because he regularly rejects the call of heroism, which is just a great excuse to explore why and what causes him to do so. Despite being around since 2004, I actually didn't even know that Paris Gavaskar, aka Indra, existed until very recently. Indra comes from a region outside of Mumbai, India, and when his mutant power of being able to summon a retractable exoskeleton manifested, he enrolled as a student at the Xavier Institute and moved to the United States. Paris was one of the few mutants at the Xavier Institute to retain his powers after M-Day, and he was one of the young mutants to take part in a sparring exercise to determine the new X-Men roster, despite the fact that he held pacifist beliefs. He would later move to San Francisco with the other X-Men before being attacked, losing his powers, and then gaining a power boost, being able to produce psionic armor and offensive tools. But the thing about Indra is that his ability, especially his recent psionic power boost, it's very similar to the mutant Armor, who can just do much more with her power and is much more well known, so Indra just kind of falls to the wayside in my opinion. Toad has been a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and by extension a part of the mutant community for a hot minute, but in my opinion, Mortimer Toynbee really hasn't been utilized as much as he should be given his massive list of abilities. Toad has a degree of superhuman strength, specifically in his back and legs, which allows the little weirdo to jump around 25 to 37 feet in the air. He's got flexible bone structure, superhuman stamina, durability, reflexes, and agility. And Toad, like a lot of super beings, has a regenerative healing factor, but unlike a lot of mutants, he has UV vision, a super strong 30-foot prehensile tongue, acidic saliva, sticky paralytic resin out of his pores, and pheromone secretion. I can understand why he isn't exactly at the top of the mutant landscape, partially because he's kinda icky, but he does have a hell of a lot of abilities to offer that are not being utilized. Okay, but if I'm gonna bring up Toad, who has had plenty of moments to shine as a pathetic underling, I think I need to talk about Anole. Victor Borkowski is another mutant with a very reptilian-like physiology. He's got scaly skin, enhanced attributes, a long sticky retractable tongue, wall crawling, camouflage, razor sharp spikes and claws, and regeneration powers. And I still still wouldn't call him anything close to consistently used or relevant. Anole has mainly showed up in the background for the past decade, and just about any of the meaningful stories or developments that he did get were pretty much almost always immediately ignored or retconned. Anole was the head of Worthington Industries for a time before he got dropped almost immediately. He and other Academy X kids briefly got the spotlight towards the end of Brian Woods' X-Men run, but that never ever came up again. He went through Omega World and got buff, but was normal again by his next appearance, and in Rosencanny, he stole the anti-mutant vaccine but was retconned to have been controlled by Emma Frost the entire time. And while Anole was somewhat prominent in New Mutants as a minor supporting character, it doesn't gel at all with his previous characterizations. The best he had was probably X-Dudes, which I honestly recommend you check out, it's kind of fun. Robert Glob Herman's body is made up of primarily a bioparaffin, which is basically a living wax. He's highly flammable, although resistant to that flame, and also resistant to most damage in general. He's also, for some reason, superhumanly strong and fast. I don't know how that works, but hey. But you know what else? Because his main amount of tissue is made up of this waxy pink stuff, he is basically transparent, meaning you can see all his bones and internal organs, and my god, it is a sight to behold. The thing about Glob is he's just kind of the coolest. He is so unique and interesting, and yet he kind of just doesn't do anything at all for anyone worthy of note. He mainly just shows up in the background of stories because, I mean, yeah, he's incredibly visually interesting and adds some color to a comic background, but put some respect on Glob's name and make him do something, please. First appearing in Extraordinary X-Men number 17 in December of 2016, Lucid, aka Maya Jackson, was a mutant whose powers developed faster compared to most other mutants. By the age of 10, she had the ability to see through solid objects, and she had big aspirations to join up with her heroes, the X-Men. But when the Mpox crisis broke out, Maya was visited by Iceman and Magic at her family's home and was offered the chance to move to the safe zone of X-Haven in Limbo. Unfortunately though, Maya's mother refused to leave her home, and Maya later fell ill to the Mpox virus, and her mother fled to X-Haven just a little bit too late. Maya's condition had worsened to the point not even mutant healers could help her. With Maya on her deathbed, her sister managed to get the current leader of the X-Men, Storm, to meet Maya, and just a few moments before she passed away, Maya was officially made a member of the X-Men under the alias she had created for herself, which was Lucid. It's sad, but it happened. Growing up, Prodigy was always bright and intelligent, but when his mutant powers activated, his intelligence seemed to double, and answers became almost instant for him. That's because his mutant ability is to telepathically absorb the knowledge and skills of anyone nearby. Now that is a super cool and practically useful superpower to have. Now although he first appeared in 2003, he was first placed on Moonstar's New Mutants training squad and went on to join the New X-Men in 2008, and has been on X-Factor Investigations, New Mutants, the Champions, Reinforcement Roster, the Young Avengers, and the New Mutant Squad before finally making it onto the actual premier X-Men team. And what happened then? Just as the new team of X-Men were finally announced, they were absolutely and explosively obliterated by Nimrod, who came down like an orbital missile, reducing Prodigy to a messy stain on the floor. Damn. And finally today, Chamber is a mutant who really has never gotten much of a fair run of things since he first gained his powers. Chamber has what's described as a furnace of psionic energy stored in his chest, and when his powers are first discovered, this energy exploded out of him, destroying his mouth and blowing a hole in his chest cavity, forcing him into intensive surgery to reconstruct the lost body parts. He now lives with a gaping hole in his front side permanently, and that is just a tough break. Chamber has had some really cool moments in the past, and his powers are powerful, but still I feel like he's kind of fallen to the wayside. Chamber has bounced around over the years, and when fans found out that he was joining New Mutants, they were pretty happy about it. But then, Chamber has done absolutely nothing of interest as a member of the New Mutants. What was the point?
The X-Men universe is a graveyard of wasted potential. Some mutants are destined for greatness, while others are deliberately erased from our collective memory. Kicking off our list is Angelo Espinosa, better known as Skin. This Generation X graduate possesses 6 extra feet of malleable skin, which he can stretch, grab objects with, or even use as a weapon. He can even use his skin as a glider to travel short distances. Now, Skin's extra skin might seem a bit creepy at first, but trust me, he's a good guy. He's also got a pretty unique look, with grayish skin that made him feel like an outsider, even among other mutants. Sadly, Skin's time with the X-Men was cut short due to his tragic death. Speaking of tragic, did you know that Skin's teammate, Enole, was almost written to commit suicide after coming out as gay? Thankfully, that storyline was scrapped, but it just goes to show the kind of intense situations these young X-Men had to deal with. And here's another interesting fact. Skin's powers are somewhat similar to Husk's, who can shed her skin to form a new layer of any material she understands. Imagine the possibilities if these two teamed up. Sadly, Skin's death makes that unlikely, but it's fun to think about. Despite his limited powers and unusual appearance, Skin was a loyal teammate and a close friend to other young mutants like Jubilee. He deserves to be remembered for his dedication and unique abilities. Next up is John Proudstar, the original Thunderbird. As one of the first new recruits to the X-Men, Thunderbird brought a unique perspective and intense personality to the team. With superhuman strength, agility, and enhanced durability, he was a force to be reckoned with. Sadly, Thunderbird met an untimely end during a mission, sacrificing himself to save his teammates. His heroic death left a lasting impact on the X-Men and readers, and he deserves to be remembered as a true hero. But here's the thing. There's another Thunderbird, Neil Shara, who has the power to turn into living plasma. He's often confused with John, which is a shame because Neil is a cool character in his own right. Maybe we'll do a video about him someday. Yara dos Santos, more commonly recognized as Shark Girl, secures the 8th spot, a testament to her unique and formidable abilities. Hailing from Brazil, Yara's mutant power allows her to undergo a striking transformation into a human-shark hybrid, a metamorphosis that grants her a suite of impressive physical enhancements. This hybrid form equips her with extraordinary strength, rendering her capable of overpowering many adversaries, and a remarkable durability that allows her to withstand significant damage. Perhaps most notably, she possesses exceptional underwater speed and agility, making her a force to be reckoned with in aquatic environments. Despite not yet achieving widespread recognition within the X-Men universe, Shark Girl's distinctive power set, combined with her fierce and determined personality, solidifies her as a truly memorable character. Her potential for growth and development within the X-Men storylines is immense, and she undoubtedly deserves greater exposure and appreciation for the unique contribution she brings to the team. Marrow, once a denizen of the Morlock tunnels beneath New York City, stands as a figure of stark contrast and undeniable power. Her mutant ability to manipulate her skeletal structure, manifesting as razor-sharp bone claws and projectiles, is both visually striking and brutally effective. This potent ability, however, is inextricably linked to her disfigured appearance, a constant reminder of her traumatic past and the hardships endured by the Morlocks. This history, coupled with a fiercely independent and often rebellious attitude, made her a contentious, though undeniably powerful addition to the X-Men. While she proved her worth on numerous critical missions, her integration into the team was perpetually strained. Her violent tendencies, honed in the harsh environment of the Morlock community, often clashed with the X-Men's more idealistic approach. Furthermore, her deeply ingrained emotional scars hindered her ability to forge meaningful connections with her teammates, leaving her perpetually on the fringes. This isolation, born from both her appearance and her temperament, ultimately prevented her from fully embracing the camaraderie and support that the X-Men offered, making her a tragic figure whose potential was often overshadowed by her internal struggles. Armor, whose given name is Hisako Ichiki, stands as a testament to the often overlooked potential of defensive mutant abilities. Her power, the creation of a formidable psionic exoskeleton, allows her to withstand devastating attacks, acting as an impenetrable barrier against physical and energy-based threats. This power, while undeniably potent, possesses inherent limitations, highlighting the strategic considerations necessary for its effective deployment. It raises intriguing questions about the interplay between defensive and offensive capabilities within the X-Men's diverse roster. The hypothetical pairing of Armor with Marrow, as suggested, presents a fascinating tactical possibility. The fusion of Armor's psionic shielding with Marrow's bone manipulation could potentially generate a truly formidable, almost impenetrable defense. Imagine a layered defense, with Marrow's bone structures acting as a first line of physical resistance, bolstered and reinforced by Armor's psionic field, creating a near unstoppable barrier. Such a synergistic combination could redefine the X-Men's defensive strategies, offering a unique and powerful approach to protecting themselves and others from even the most overwhelming threats. This concept underscores the untapped potential within the X-Men's less prominent members and the strategic depth that could be explored through their combined powers. powers. At number 6, we have Davis Cameron, also known as Slipstream. This Australian mutant can create teleportation portals, allowing him to travel instantly with his allies. While his time with the X-Men was brief, Slipstream's unique power and laid-back personality make him a character with untapped potential. He deserves another chance to shine in the X-Men universe. You know, Slipstream's powers remind me of Multiple Man, who can create duplicates of himself. Multiple Man recently increased his dupe limit, so imagine if he and Slipstream worked together. They could infiltrate any location with ease. Dr. Cecilia Reyes, a highly competent trauma surgeon, occupies a unique space within the X-Men universe, often relegated to the background despite her valuable contributions. Her mutant ability, the generation of personal force fields, provides a significant defensive capability, yet Dr. Reyes consistently prioritizes her medical expertise above all else. This dedication to healing, rather than combat, sets her apart from many of her more overtly aggressive teammates. Her perspective, grounded in the realities of trauma and the fragility of life, offers a vital counterbalance to the often violent conflicts the X-Men face. Dr. Reyes' commitment to saving lives, both through her surgical skills and her mutant abilities, underscores her inherent heroism. She serves as a powerful reminder that heroism is not solely defined by displays of physical power, but also by compassion, dedication, and the unwavering commitment to the preservation of life. Her willingness to use her abilities to protect and heal rather than to inflict harm is a testament to her character and a compelling reason why she deserves greater recognition for her contributions to the X-Men. Her presence highlights the importance of diverse skill sets and perspectives within the team, demonstrating that even those who prefer to avoid conflict can play a crucial role in safeguarding mutant kind and humanity alike. Coming in at number 4 is Japheth, better known as Maggot. This South African mutant has one of the most unusual powers in the X-Men universe. Two slug-like creatures named Eenie and Meanie that act as his external digestive system. These slugs crawl out of his stomach and eat any kind of matter, converting it into energy that gives Maggot super strength and a healing factor. While his powers might seem strange, Maggot is a loyal and courageous X-Man who deserves more appreciation for his unique abilities and his dedication to the team. Taking the third spot is the tragically forgotten Forget-Me-Not. This mutant's power is that everyone immediately forgets he exists after meeting him. This makes it incredibly difficult for him to form connections and be remembered, even by his fellow X-Men. To make matters worse, Forget-Me-Not was killed and subsequently forgotten by both the X-Men and readers alike. Talk about adding insult to injury. Forget-Me-Not's unique power and his struggle to be recognized make him a truly compelling character who deserves more love from both writers and fans. At number 2, we have Soraya Qadir, also known as Dust. This young Afghani Muslim mutant can transform into a cloud of swirling sand, granting her incredible offensive and defensive capabilities. Dust has been a background character for far too long, and she deserves more opportunities to showcase her powers and her unique perspective as a Muslim superhero. And finally, our top pick for the most forgotten X-Men hero who deserves more love is Jonathan Starsmore, also known as Chamber. This British mutant possesses psionic energy that manifests as a destructive force, replacing his lower jaw and upper chest. Chamber's mutant ability severely damaged his body, leaving him with a unique appearance and a constant struggle to control his powers. This, combined with his difficulty forming relationships, makes for a truly tragic backstory. He deserves more exploration and development in the X-Men universe. If you're hungry for more deep dives into the Marvel universe, don't forget to click the video on your screen right now. We're uncovering all the Daredevil Easter eggs you might have missed in episodes 1 and 2, so you won't want to miss that. You think the X-Men's powerhouses are all about flashy energy blasts and telekinesis? You're missing the real Omega-level threats hiding in plain sight. Jonathan Jono Starsmore, better known as Chamber, commands a truly formidable power set, marking him as a potential powerhouse within the Marvel Universe. His innate ability to generate and project potent biokinetic energy blasts from the gaping void in his chest positions him as a living, breathing energy cannon. However, the sheer destructive force of these blasts, coupled with the significant physical strain they impose, has historically hampered his potential. Picture, though, a scenario where Chamber achieves complete mastery over his volatile energy. Such control would transform him into a singular force of destruction and defense, capable of leveling entire urban landscapes or withstanding the most devastating of assaults. Envision him confronting a Sentinel army. With Omega-level precision, he could unleash a relentless torrent of energy, obliterating entire formations with effortless ease. Furthermore, the possibility exists for him to not merely project, but also absorb energy, potentially siphoning power from the Sentinels themselves. This absorption could catalyze a dramatic evolution of his abilities, transcending simple energy blasts to encompass intricate energy manipulation or even complete energy absorption, propelling him to a level of power that could reshape the very landscape of mutant abilities. Jean-Paul Beaubier, the dazzling North Star, secures the 9th position with his impressive array of superhuman speed-based abilities. His capacity for rapid movement and flight, with the potential to approach light speed, coupled with his extraordinary stamina, endurance, and reflexes, already renders him a significant asset. However, the true potential of North Star lies in the hypothetical expansion of his powers beyond their current limits. Imagine him transcending mere velocity to manipulate the very fabric of time, phasing effortlessly through solid matter, or even transforming into a living conduit of pure energy. The sheer breadth of possibilities is staggering. Comparisons inevitably arise with other speedsters within the Marvel pantheon, particularly Quicksilver. Could North Star, with the attainment of Omega level speed, surpass even the latter's renowned velocity? Picture him as a near imperceptible blur, an entity moving so swiftly as to become effectively untouchable and unstoppable, a force capable of rewriting the rules of engagement simply by existing within the temporal space of a conflict. Such an evolution would not only elevate North Star to unprecedented heights, but also redefine the very concept of speed within the Marvel Universe. Clarice Ferguson, the enigmatic Blink, secures the 8th position with her extraordinary teleportation abilities, a power that fundamentally alters the dynamics of space and combat. Her capacity to generate portals, facilitating instantaneous travel for herself and others across vast distances, is already a significant tactical advantage. However, her offensive application of these portals, allowing her to displace objects or even selectively remove portions of them, adds another layer of formidable power. Furthermore, her ability to create teleporting javelins capable of instantly relocating anything they touch elevates her to a truly unique and potent combatant. While Blink's current abilities are invaluable to any team, the potential for her powers to reach Omega level status is truly staggering. Imagine her possessing the ability to teleport anything, anywhere, at any time, without limitation. She would become the ultimate infiltrator, capable of bypassing any security measure, the ultimate rescuer, able to extract individuals from any perilous situation, and the ultimate disruptor, capable of manipulating entire battlefields with the precise placement of her portals. Consider the strategic ramifications. She could effortlessly rescue civilians from collapsing structures, divert explosive devices before detonation, or dismantle enemy formations by strategically relocating soldiers to inhospitable environments. This level of control would transform Blink into a master manipulator of space, rendering her an indispensable asset and a force to be reckoned with. Stepping into our number 7 spot is Dani Moonstar, aka Mirage. This new mutant can psionically create illusions based on the fears and desires of others. She's a master manipulator, capable of turning an enemy's own mind against them. But what if Mirage could take her powers to the next level? Imagine if she could create illusions so real they could cause physical harm, or even manipulate reality itself. She could become a psychic powerhouse, capable of bending the world to her will. And don't forget about her other abilities. Mirage is also a skilled leader and has even tapped into Valkyrie powers in times of need. With Omega level potential, she could become a psychic warrior, leading armies and shaping reality with her mind. Blazing into our number 6 spot is Roberto da Costa, aka Sunspot. This Brazilian powerhouse can absorb solar energy and convert it into superhuman strength, flight, and even concussive blasts. He's like a walking solar battery. Now, Sunspot's already a force to be reckoned with, but imagine if he could absorb other forms of energy. He could become a walking energy sponge, capable of draining the power from his enemies, or even feeding off the energy of entire stars. He could fly through supernovas, absorb the energy of black holes, and become a cosmic powerhouse. Magnetizing our number 5 spot is Lorna Dane, aka Polaris. As the daughter of Magneto, she inherited his incredible power over magnetism. She can manipulate magnetic fields, create force fields, and even fly. While already a powerful mutant in her own right, imagine if Polaris could tap into the full potential of her abilities. She could control the Earth's magnetic field, manipulate metal on a global scale, or even disrupt technology with a thought. She could become a true mistress of magnetism, and with her connection to the Earth's EM field, she could potentially amplify her powers to an Omega level, becoming a living embodiment of the planet's magnetic force. Deciphering our number 4 spot is Douglas Ramsey, aka Cypher. This mutant has the incredible ability to understand any spoken or written language, human or alien. He's basically a universal translator. Now, while Cypher's power might seem passive at first, imagine if he could use his language skills to manipulate technology, reprogram machines, or even communicate with and control sentient computer systems. He could become the ultimate hacker, capable of infiltrating any system and bending it to his will. He could rewrite computer code with a thought, shut down entire power grids, or even communicate with alien civilizations. Forging his way into our number 3 spot is the brilliant inventor Forge. This mutant has an intuitive talent for inventing any kind of mechanical device. He can create anything from weapons to vehicles to even time travel devices. Now, Forge is already a valuable asset to any team, but imagine if he could push his powers to the next level. He could create technology that defies the laws of physics, build machines that manipulate reality, or even design weapons capable of taking down the most powerful beings in the universe. He could become the ultimate weaponsmith, outfitting mutant kind with technology that could rival even the Celestials. Swirling into our number 2 spot is Soraya Kadir, aka Dust. This Afghan mutant can transform her body into a cloud of sand, granting her flight, intangibility, and even the ability to suffocate her enemies. While already a formidable opponent, imagine if Dust could control sand on a massive scale. She could create sandstorms that engulf entire cities, manipulate the very ground beneath her enemies' feet, or even solidify sand into weapons or structures. She could become a true force of nature. With Omega level control over sand, she could reshape deserts, create oases, and even manipulate the Earth's tectonic plates. And finally, crawling into our number 1 spot is Japheth, aka Maggot. This mutant has a unique digestive system that manifests as 2 slugs that can consume any material and grant him superhuman strength and size. Now, while Maggot's powers might seem a bit gross at first, imagine if he could control those slugs and their digestive abilities. He could consume anything, from energy to matter to even abstract concepts like time or space. He could become the ultimate recycler, capable of breaking down and rebuilding anything in existence. He could devour entire planets, absorb the energy of stars, and even rewrite the fabric of reality. And that's just a taste of the untapped potential within the X-Men. If you're hungry for more Marvel power rankings, be sure to check out my previous video, Top 10 Powerful Marvel Villains That Deserve Their Own Movie. Click on the video to dive deeper into the world of Marvel's most formidable characters.